Hi guys, just wanted to go over these composite inverse functions. And one thing we want to clear up is to make sure that our answers, if our answer lies or our values, if they're in radians or angles or if they're points, is actually determined by this first word. If we do not see the inverse or arc, cosine or -1, then we know that it's going to be one of these numbers, square root of 2 over 2, 1/2, 1, undefined, whatever it is. But if we see a -1 or we see arc in front of it, then it's actually the radian measures, or it's asking for the angle. So that first part is saying, hey, this is what your answer should be in the form of. So make sure you clear that up. According to this one, our answers have to be in these points outside of here. Okay? So now we'll talk about interpreting what it's saying. And it's saying, what is the cosine value, again on the ordered pair, of the angle whose sine value is 1/2? So we know that sine is going to be in quadrants 1 and 4. This is positive. So we're looking for the sine value that is 1/2, which is right here. And we look right over next door, and there's our x value right in front of it. And that is our cosine value, which is, you guessed it, square root of 3 over 2. Now this one is also looking for a point. Again, it starts out as sine. It's looking for the ordered pairs. So it's actually wanting to know what is the sine or the y value, or the angle measure that opens up from here to here, that opens up to the cosine value of the square root of 2 over 2. Well, once again, it's asking for the other point. Now, when we get to this one, it's no longer asking for the other ordered pair. It is now asking for a radian measure. Why do we know this? Because of this right here. That's right. So it's asking the question, what is the angle whose cosine value is at pi thirds? Now this is a little bit more confusing. So it says, what is the sine value of the angle measure whose cosine value is at pi thirds? So let's go through all of this. We want to go to pi thirds. We know that. So we come up here and we actually have to find the cosine value, which is what? Right. It's the 1/2, which is the x. But then it's asking us, okay, now go to the sine, where the sine is that same value, which is right here. I know, a little confusing on this one. Just remember, I don't know if you remember this, studying that there are also complementary angles. I don't know if that's going to help you, but these will swap. So when we find those, it'll end up actually being pi sixth on this one. A little confusing on that one. This one as well, looking out for it, it's the same thing. It's saying, what's the measure of the angle, the cosine value of the angle, whose sine is at pi sixth? So this time, we go to pi sixth, we find the sine value, which is 1/2 right here. And now we're looking around the unit circle and we're trying to find where the cosine value is now 1/2. And we see that that is pi thirds. Wanted to make sure we went over these in that video to clarify those. Those are probably the most confusing ones. This one is, what is the angle measure of the sine value that is 7 pi fourths. Now, I do see 7 pi fourths is here in our sine value. is in fact negative square root of 2 over 2. But again, we have restrictions on we've restricted the domain of the original sine function, which is now the range of our inverse sine function, so that we know we have to actually write it instead of 7 pi fourths, we're going to write it as negative pi fourths. This one's a little bit easier because we didn't have to swap sine for cosine or anything like that. Now this one says, what's the measure of the angle whose sine value is at pi thirds, and we want to get the cosine value. So once again, it's that flip-flop that we've seen. So let's go to sine of pi thirds, and here's our pi thirds. We go to our sine value, that's the square root of 3 over 2, and then we want to go and find where the cosine value turns into the square root of 3 over 2, and we see that that's where? Destination, yay! Our answer, pi sixth. So navigating these, again, we're kind of moving here, finding our value, and then moving to the cosine value and finding our answer. These two are a little bit more confusing. On this one we have and we know we're looking for a point because we don't see -1 here. So we're looking for, where's the tangent value where it's the square root of 3? Well, we talked about this before, and if we take these 2 points right up here and we do this square root of 3 over 2 and we divide by 1/2, this is where we find the tangent value, that's the square root of 3 in this location right here. So we talked about that in class, and we'll keep working on that. So now all I want to know is what's the sine value, and we see that it is in fact the square root of 3 over 2. This last one, I think we have one more besides this. It's asking, so we want to go where the tangent value, again, we know that we're going to have an answer that is not in radian, but in fact is one of the points or the ordered pairs, because we see no -1 right there. So we're going to go to the tangent value of -1. Now when we do that, we'll actually, and remember, you can only be, here's our positive numbers and here's our negative numbers in quadrant 4 when it comes to tangent. So we see that we are in quadrant 4, and we're actually down here because this is our value. If you divide these two, the y divided by the x, you end up with a -1. So we certainly do see that that is at 7 pi fourths, but it's not asking for the angle measure. It is actually asking for the cosine value, which is in fact the square root of 2 over 2. Now, this one is saying we know that it's going to end up being a oh, I left something off. I know that that was an angle measure, so I was kind of correcting that real quick. There should be a -1 because we're looking for an angle in that problem. So it says, what is the measure of an angle? And I knew that there was an error there because I had put the answer there, and I was like, hey, it's not asking for an angle. So I'm fixing that. I know I'm looking for the measure of an angle. It says, what is the measure of the angle, the tangent angle, where the cosine value is pi. So we're going to go to pi, and we're looking for the cosine value. See, I'm way over here at pi, and then I'm looking at the cosine value, which is x. I see that it is -1, which means I'm going to have to go, where is my tangent value -1? Well, that is, like we showed in class, is right in here. Because if we take these two numbers, the negative square root of 2 over 2, which is the y value, divided by the x, we get a -1. And we see that we're locating now at 7 pi fourths. But we don't write 7 pi fourths. We actually write -pi fourths would be our answer on that one. Hope this is helpful.